All right, Casper. So we got to get together right now, and I just wanted to tell everybody we met in an entrepreneurs group called BLN,
Yeah.
and we had a brief discussion, and we got to know each other a little bit, and so now here we are. So you get to share your journey with the world, and we can get to know you a little bit deeper. And
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity, John. And
absolutely, yeah. But let's just start off with who's Casper? What's he doing today? And then let's figure out how Casper got to be where he is today.
yeah, well, that's a long story. I don't know if we had that kind of time. But yeah, I grew up on the East Coast, and I went into the Air Force at 17. I was very young. Turned 18 at the tech school here in Colorado, and served in the military 14 and a half years. But it started to get kind of weird. And plus I got stuck at staff sergeant. I got stuck at E5. I couldn't advance past that. So my pay kind of leveled out, and it was time to move on, So I exited the military, um, and I was trying to get a job doing similar things that I was doing in the military, but that didn't work out well. And I started just doing sales and doing anything I could, to earn income. Um, and so I've been doing tech jobs and sales jobs and training jobs and online website design, working on computers. Been doing all that for many years. I even ran a mortgage company for a while, and I ran a direct sales company for a while. So I, I've got a very wide range of experience, if you will, out there. But today, my wife and I are Christian marriage coaches, and we've been doing that for about 15 years. And my life really didn't start to make sense to me really until I got married to my current wife. And I say current wife because I've been married before as well. I have children from previous marriages, and just, my relationship history was very jacked up until I met my current wife. And we were married for 21 years. So I normally tell my story or start my story um, after Cheryl. So my wife's name is Cheryl. So I say, before Cheryl, BC. I don't talk about BC. I only talk about, today. So yeah, so that's the beginning of it. But now we do relationship coaching and counseling. Been doing that for over, like I said, 15 years. And we got a lot of stuff on our plate right now. A TV show we're working on, and just all kinds of awesome things.
So you talk about relationships with other people?
Yeah. Um, So I was at a crossroads about 21 years ago. I just had a failed relationship, another one, and I'm sitting in my car, and I can remember the moment. I don't remember the day, but I remember the moment. I was sitting in my car outside my apartment, and I was like, God, I was crying out to God. I said, obviously, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm failing at this whole relationship marriage thing. It's just not working. So I want to be married. I really enjoy the concept of being married, but I wasn't picking the right person to be married to. So I said, if she's out there, God, you're going to have to kind of have her pass in front of my vision, because I'm done. I'm okay with being single for the rest of my life. If that's the case, but I don't want to be, but I'm okay with that. And it wasn't but 2 weeks later, I got the image of Cheryl. Now I knew Cheryl, but I didn't know her. I just knew her in passing. I talked to her a couple of times, but I didn't know anything about her really, other than she was pretty. I knew that. So I called a mutual friend and asked my friend if Cheryl was dating anyone, and she said, I'm not really sure. Let me find out. So she called me back a couple of days later. She said that Cheryl was not dating anyone. And I said, wow, okay, that's interesting. And then things kind of progressed from there. There's a lot more to that story. But so we went out on a date 2 weeks after that vision. That night we went out on a date. We talked for 3 hours after our movie date. And I knew that night that she was my wife. I knew it. Now she didn't know, and she didn't get the memo from God on that one. So she was not feeling it. But it took me and God about 2 weeks to work on her. And then 2 weeks later, she agreed to marry me. And then 45 days later, we were married. And we've been married for 21 years as of last September. We'll be 22 this coming September.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. That you don't hear that too often anymore. So, I mean, it takes work, and it takes work from both sides. So I'm just curious though, and you don't have to go into too much detail, but I mean, what would you say that you didn't have in the past that you were able to bring to this marriage?
Well, we have these 7 keys to healthy relationships, and that we hand out to folks anytime we're talking to them. And a lot of the keys to a healthy relationship I didn't have before, but I didn't know that I didn't have them. In other words, I didn't realize that you need to seek a good match. That's one of the keys, right? I didn't know about some of the other things that we talk about. I didn't know about having values and making sure that my partner had the same values. I didn't know that I should be choosing a real partner, not a makeover project. all these things we have, about 7 of them. So I didn't know that I didn't need to change myself to try to please someone else. So I didn't know these things. Now I do, and now we teach them. But at the time, like I said, I was picking them based upon superficial things, like they were pretty, or and all those relationships, all of them prior to my wife, started with physical, as opposed to getting to know the person, making sure we're compatible, making sure we're good together, we're friends, and all these kind of things. So my wife, she at the time we were dating, within 45 days, she said, she's not. She said it wouldn't be any physical relationship unless we were married. And that was different for me, but it caused me to now step back a little bit and say, okay, I still want to pursue this relationship. So I want to get to know this woman, as opposed to it just being physical. And then you find out, we're not even really compatible. I don't even know why we did this kind of thing. So all those past relationships were all started for the wrong reasons. And they ended, they ended because they weren't right. It wasn't the right fit.
So you didn't have that in the past, but what or where did you learn this stuff then? Like to say, hey, was it you and your wife now that you sat down and you read books? I don't know, because not too many people. I would say not. Maybe your expertise is different from what you hear from people, but I would say a lot of people don't look into this stuff unless they've been through something already.
Sure. So for me, unfortunately, it was trial and error. Right? Every time I had a failed relationship or a failed marriage, I said, okay, don't do that again. But I still did other things, and I kept some. But each relationship taught me more things to not do the next time. So I learned through trial and error. Now, my wife had never been married, and she had some relationships and stuff, and they just didn't go anywhere. But she was growing and learning in her life, and I was growing by trial and error in my life. So we got together. We were in our early 40s when we married. We were married for 21 years, all right. So that just add those numbers up. But we were mature when we came together. We already kind of knew what we liked. We knew what we didn't like. We knew what we didn't want. We knew what we wanted. And it just made sense because of these things that we put together, these 7 keys. We were very compatible spiritually. We were super compatible when it comes to business and how to run a household, super compatible just in a lot of different areas. So a lot of couples that we coach, you hear this thing about opposites attract. Well, yes, they do attract in the sense that people are just curious or fascinated by somebody that's different than them. But the challenge with that is over time, it becomes annoying. So starts out, if you're into sports and they're not into sports, right? In the beginning, they're just going wherever you go because you're there, they're there. But then what happens is over time, they're like, okay, I don't know why you're into the sport so much. Well, I was into it when we first met, and I thought you were as well. But now sports is the problem. Sports is the irritation because they really weren't into sports. They were into you. So people get together, opposites get together, but then over time they start to pull apart because they don't like the same things. Now, my wife and I enjoy a lot of the same things, but there are some things we don't have the same level of interest in. For example, golf, right? So I like to golf. My wife had never golfed until she met me. Now, she would go with me to golf, and then she found out that she actually enjoyed it. Not to the level that I do, right? So I go out and play 9 holes, 18 holes, or whatever. She's only done that like twice, I think, in 21 years. But she has gone to the driving range with me many times and things like that. So if you aren't into whatever your spouse or your partner's into, you need to be into it enough so that you are with them the majority of the time. Because if you're not, then somebody else that is into it is going to be there. And that's when the enemy has the opportunity to cause a rift in your relationship.
Gotcha. Yeah. So communicating with her and I'm going to say deep conversations and stuff. I mean, how did you first feel to how you feel now about sitting down and talking like, hey, look, what you just did yesterday made me feel this way. Whatever you want to call it, you go back and forth. But I mean, what were the feelings like back then compared to now if you were to sit down and talk?
Yeah. Communication is probably one of the top 3 issues that couples or married couples or even people in a relationship have, even partnerships, business partnerships, communication is huge. So for us in the beginning, like I said, because we were pretty mature coming into this, we knew we had to communicate well. And we've had many struggles to where, if it wasn't for a solid communication, it could have easily broken us apart. But we knew this going in, right? So we forced ourselves to have those tough conversations. Now, there's this thing that happens with some people because some people are the type of personality that withdraws. So anytime there's a conflict, they just withdraw. They just leave the house, leave the room, leave the conversation. And then there's other people that want to get a resolution. So my wife is a withdrawer and I want resolution. So I used to just follow her around and say, we need to talk about this. But then I realized, especially with our training and stuff, I realized that she needs time to process what's going on. So she needs that time. But then we teach couples, so look, you can be someone that withdraws and it's not unnatural or it's not unhealthy. But what is unhealthy is if you don't address that situation. In other words, you can't just withdraw and just forget about it because it never goes away. It just gets swept under the rug or what have you. And then if something else happens and that gets swept under the rug, and then pretty soon you got this big lump under the rug. And then one little thing just explodes everything. So if somebody is into withdrawing, or not into it, but if that's the personality type, what we say is, okay, you can withdraw, but you have to come back to that conversation within 24 hours. Okay, don't let a day go by before you address whatever it is. And it could be something simple. But if you let it build or if you try to push it into the corner and ignore it, it's never going away. So we have a free communication tool we offer on our website that people can use that helps with that back and forth conversation. It's not a natural thing to slow the conversation down because typically what happens is while they're talking, you're not even listening to what they're saying. You're gearing up for the reply, as opposed to listening to what they're saying. So this communication tool we have slows the conversation down. So you have to hear what they're saying. And we have found out over the years that once couples actually hear the other person, then it makes things just, they work out better.
Yeah. And so that person that's like gearing up, getting ready, is it then like ready to defend themselves?
Yeah. It's ready to argue. It's ready to defend themselves. Well, this is why I did that, or this is what's going on, or you don't care about me, and you don't care about my friends. There's all these, you don't this and you don't that. So this communication tool cuts all that out, because in order for to have a healthy conversation, you have to hear and paraphrase back to your partner what they said, not what you want to say, what they just said. So if she says something like, when you go out with your friends and stay out all night, I get worried. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And you don't call or anything. So instead of me saying, well, I can do whatever I want to do, I'm grown, right? You say, well, so what you're saying is when I stay out all night, you're worried about me and you don't know. See, so you're just paraphrasing back to them what they said. That changes the whole conversation. And then what happens is the husband or whoever is saying, so, no, I do care about you. I just, I wanted to, hang out with the fellas or whatever it is, right? So it just helps that communication, slows it down so you can actually hear what the other person is saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that this probably goes along with, I like to use the words on uncommunicated expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I might think that, this person's going to do something and it doesn't happen. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So you just feel down. You feel like, what the, and, yeah. So, I mean, there's stuff like that too. So I can see where the communication is a big factor. We know it. Like, it is. It's a huge factor. Yeah. And, but a lot of people are afraid to do that work because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that they're afraid that their partner is going to get upset or do a 180, 360, whatever it is to say, no, you're wrong, I'm right, and why you bring this up or whatever, you know what I mean? Right. Do you find it where people are having a hard time communicating like that? Like actually, sitting down and saying that, we need to work on this because they think that's going to happen.
Well, yeah, but it's not a natural conversation. But guess what? If you have decided to be with this person forever, right? It's a covenant, not a contract. And if you treat it as a covenant, then you're going to want to take the time to go through this. It's not for the squeamish, if you will. It's not if you just want to just dismiss it and move on to the next one, right? That's where I was before I met my wife. I would just say, you know what, it's not worth it, so I'm out. Or they would say they're out, right? So instead, we decided that this is it. This is it. We're going to stand our ground on this. We're going to make it work. And to make it work, it takes work. It takes some effort. So this communication tool helps in that regard. And yeah, it's uncomfortable sometimes, and sometimes your feelings might get hurt or whatever. But better, I would rather know than not know. Mm-hmm. I'd rather know than to speculate and get, I don't know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. I want to know that she's into me, and I want her to know I'm into her. If she's not into me, I need to know that so I can, so I can figure something else out. So it's, relationships are, can be challenging, but our tagline is, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So we help couples and people just have fun in their relationships.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. And you should, right? Instead of just wondering what the other person's thinking, how they're going to take this.
Yeah.
Do you find it more like people that are married are looking for help in this area, trying to communicate better. And I think if it, and you can add into this, I think you have something where you try to prevent divorce.
Yes. Well, our book is, we have a book called Divorce Proofing Your Marriage.
Yeah.
And, but these things we're talking about really apply to anyone. It applies to you and your children. It applies to you at your job. It applies to any time you're interacting with another human being. But of course, in the context of what we do, is trying to end divorce in our world, and that's a big task. But there is really no reason, especially in the body of Christ, that there should be a 50% divorce rate. So if you look to your left or to your right, one or two of the people that you're looking at is either in a divorce or have gone through a divorce, right? So that's high. It shouldn't be that high. But again, we go into these relationships with the wrong reasons. And then when they don't work, it's easy to get out. $250 if there's no contested situations, and you're out. Right? So then so you go on to the next tragedy that's going to happen. So it's something people need to take more seriously and slow down, maybe in the beginning, to ask the right questions. And if they do that, then they could avoid a lot of headaches and drama.
Yeah. I like that too. And unfortunately, a lot of people find out after they're already married and they're so far into it, and then they think it's just the way it is. And some of them don't want to communicate, in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, we talk, what we find is people are embarrassed, one, to get help, right? And it's mostly the guys. Women are quicker to get the help than guys. A lot of times the wives are the one that's kind of initiating the contact with us, for example. Husbands just think it's fine. Everything is fine until the wife walks out the door. And they say, whoa, what happened? It's like, dude, it wasn't fine, right? And even if you're at a 5, okay, we'll work on taking it to a 6 or a 7. And if you're at a 8 or 9, then work on getting it to a 10. There's always room to improve. If you think about it, John, we do this for everything that we're involved in, right? At our job or our business, if we're starting a new business, do we just decide that, okay, no, it's good right here? No, I mean, we want our business to thrive. We want to be able to hire employees. We want the business to grow. We want to be able to help more people. But when it comes to our marriage, we're just like, oh, it's fine. It's not fine. Because if it was fine, then we wouldn't have a 50% divorce rate in our world right now.
Yep. Yeah, and so I think a lot of people follow the leader, right? And they just say that's okay. Yeah. If they can do it, I can do it, and it's all right. Yeah, and so we were talking about how somebody should start out at the beginning and have these conversations and stuff. And a lot of people, I guess, today would be like, that's just weird. You don't do that, right? So I'm single. You know what I mean? Like that would be kind of like, in my eyes, like I would be looking for that first, right? I would want, because I'm sure whoever that person will be, they probably went through something as well, and they worked on themselves, and they go, I don't want to go through it again. This is what I want to do, and this is how I have it, right? Yeah. But like in the same breath, somebody, saying that, you're still thinking like, well, who's going to be that person that you're going to sit down and go, like, this is my values, these are, you know what I mean? Like, and then the other one's going to go.
Right. So again, it depends on how serious the relationship is or is going to be. If it's just a friendly date, you're just going out for dinner or whatever, it's no big deal. But if things start to become more serious, that's when you need to pull out the list, because now we're getting serious. But until then, you're just friends or whatever, just doing your thing. I'm talking about people that are angling towards getting into a serious relationship. And if you're doing that, you need to be serious about it and start having those conversations. Well, 21 years ago, before we were married, because we were mature and we kind of knew what we wanted and what we didn't want, my wife started asking me questions. And I always joke around. I felt like I was on the witness stand, Yes, Your Honor, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Okay. So, and she would ask me these questions. And because of my sincerity in the answers, and some of them were uncomfortable because it was about my past and my drama in the past, right? And my children and all this other stuff. So some of them weren't comfortable, but because I really wanted to be her husband and I wanted this relationship to work, I just told her this is what it is, right? I wasn't trying to hide anything. She knows more. There's only one person, two people in this world that know more about me than my wife. That's me and God. That's it. And she knows everything about me that there is to know, even some embarrassing things. I told her everything. And because of that, she has a comfort level with me. And that's what keeps our relationship strong. Right. So yes, in the beginning, if it's just fun, you're just hanging out, dancing, whatever, you don't have to pull out the list after the first dance. Say, okay, here we go. You don't have to do that. But if it's leading towards becoming a serious relationship, then that's when you say, okay, it seems like this is going to be serious. So you should be asking me questions and I have some questions for you.
Yeah. And so like, I'm going to ask you, like, what would you say at that time frame would be? And I'm let me kind of rephrase that. Cause I hear like, you don't start talking about stuff like this until you're 6 months into it or whatever. Right. I did.
Yeah. There is no time frame.
Yeah.
Like for my wife and I, because after that first date, I'm telling you, after the first date, I knew. 2 weeks later, she knew. So now we have, and she agreed to get engaged, and she wanted to put the marriage off for a year. And I was like, no, we got to shorten that up a little bit. So we went from a year engagement to 45 days. But during that 45 days, that's when we were going over the list and we were making sure that we were a good match on all these. Now I felt after that first night, after talking to her for 3 hours, that we were a good match. And over 2 weeks, between what I was sharing with her and what God was sharing with her, she felt the same way. So every relationship is different. Some relationships, it may take 6 months. It could take a year. I've known people that have been engaged for 2 years kind of thing. Yeah. And so I can't even relate to those couples. Mm. But everyone is different. So there's no, okay, 6 months, you should be here, or 4 months, you should be here. That doesn't exist. Every couple and every situation is going to be different. But I think you will know when it's the time to start having more serious conversations.
Yeah, you don't want to get too far and then not have it. You're married and never had them, right? It's
right. Yeah. Well, if you're married and never had them, then you definitely blew it, which is what I think all those times. You never want to get married and then say, okay, now are we a good match?
That's right. Yeah.
What are your values? Do you go to church? I don't. You should know all this before.
Exactly. You should. Oh man, that's awesome. No, I listen, Casper, I know you're doing a lot of stuff. So how many, let's just say couples or people do you want to try to help? Like, what's your goal?
So there is no top goal. Right now we can work with about 250 couples on a semi one-on-one basis. We have this program called MVP Club. And the MVP Club, we can go up to about 250 couples because it's online, it's live, interactive kind of thing. And not everybody is going to be talking at the same time or whatever. And a lot of questions someone would ask, someone else is thinking the same thing. So we answer a lot of their questions. We do some one-on-one counseling and coaching, but not as much as we have done in the past. A lot of our stuff has been group settings. Like we've done workshops to where there might be as many as 50 couples in a room, 100 people in a room at one setting. So we've done, I've lost track of how many of those we've done over the past 15 years. So yeah, a lot of our stuff now is through our book and through the online arena through our MVP club.
Right. And so where do you find that at?
You can go to our website, iamlovebuilders.com. That's iamlovebuilders.com. So you can get it connected to our MVP program. There is a cost for that. But we have a lot of free training that we do every other week. We do live training on social media. So we do a Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube stream twice a month. Mm-hmm. We also have a live show we do as well every Sunday, and that's just like it's like a podcast that we do every Sunday live, and we blast that out as well. Those are our free resources. We have a free ebook. That's the first 5 chapters of our book, and they can go to iamlovebuilders.com to download the free ebook. We have love assessments that are on our website. Those are free as well. We have the communication card, like I mentioned earlier. They can get that. So a lot of free resources, but we're also in the business to make money as well. So we have some paid programs in the book.
Yeah, and it's great that you have all this free stuff because you're giving, right? And somebody can pick up just that free stuff and actually learn something and apply it.
Yeah.
But there are those moments you got to dive a little deeper and you need the coaching. So
absolutely. So just a couple of weeks ago and stuff, I was online posting in a chat, and there was someone who was. Anytime you post in the chat, there's always like a bunch of people that are watching or reading stuff, but they're not involved with the chat. So this one lady reached out to me and she said, I liked your response to this other person in the chat. And she says, I'd like for you guys to talk to me and my husband. And, not to get personal in their business, but they were having some challenges, and a lot of them dealt with communication like we were just talking about. So we do have a free assessment kind of thing that a free consultation. So we talked to them for like an hour and a half for free and found out what the problem was, or at least one of the main challenges they were having. And we said, look, the first thing you guys need to do is use this communication card so you can hear what each other is saying. Because as we were listening, we're like, okay, I don't think you heard what he said. I don't think he heard what you said, because you guys are on the same page. You're just not listening to each other. So we said, use this communication card. If you have any further issues or whatever, let us know. We would be happy to chat with you. Plug into our podcast, plug into our free trainings, get our book. But we didn't really need to spend a lot of time with them because they were empty nesters, right? It's just them in the home. The kids are grown. I'm like, you guys should be like having the time of your lives right now. You should be enjoying each other. And they were at each other, but they weren't listening. So that was several months. Well, that's probably about 2 months ago now. And I've interacted with them since online, and it's better. I don't know, if it's perfect. It probably will never be perfect, but it's better. Just from that one consulting time we spoke with them.
That's good. Yeah, and that's sometimes that's what it takes. Things that, and you're becoming a mediator in a sense. Between the two of them. So you can see both of them.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, Casper. I appreciate you sharing what you have, and I just want to ask you one question, like I ask every other guest I have on the show.
Sure.
And it's, what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
3 things I've learned along the journey. Well, when I was 17, I thought I knew everything. And my 20-year-old daughter, now I tell her, I said, look, when I was 17, I thought I knew everything, and you think right now you know everything. You don't. Because I'm 64 and I'm still learning. So I'm learning that I don't know everything. I'm learning to be more patient with people, even the people I disagree with, whether it's spiritually, politically, or whatever. I've learned to be able to talk to just about anyone, even if we are diametrically opposed on issues. And just the fact that at the end of the day, especially as a Christian, I love everybody. Now, I'm not, if you're coming at me to attack me, to harm me or my family, all that goes out the window, right? Because I'm going to protect myself and my family. But if we just disagree on stuff, I can agree to disagree and still love you and still want the best for you, just not in my circle. So, I've got to the point now that life is too short, especially at 64. John, I plan on living till I'm 120, just so you know.
Good man.
All
All right.
So I'm like halfway through.
I'm halfway through.
So, when I go to visit my kids and my grandkids or my great-grandson, who is a year and a month old, I'm just happy. I'm just smiling all the time, having a good time, even though the old Casper would have been, okay, why do you have him in those clothes? Or why is that going on? Or why are you in this home? Pick up the trash. I just look over all that because life's too short. I just enjoy my family, love on everybody, try to help as many people as possible.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate that. And Casper, it was great having you on. I'm going to have to get you and your wife one time and
Yes,
we can go back and forth probably or something, but
yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you spending your time with me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sean.